There are firefighters at your building when there's an emergency.
Yeah.
Right? So again, 2:30 in the morning, you just woke up.
He was lecturing me about my Supra, and he's like, you touch it too much. Like, you touch your paint so much, and that's why you have swirls. That's why you have this and that.
He's a savior. He's a magic man. If I need some help and I need something really fixed, that's who I'm going to as well.
I literally appraise cars as part of my job for a living, and I didn't know that trick.
Yeah. Craziest story. I mean, I'm in a body shop, so we have many.
The whole industry has many stories.
We just want hardworking people that are passionate with what they do, and the rest can be taught.
Thank you for coming back for another episode of Coffee with Dustin, which might be rebranded to Performance Podcast at this point, because we're doing a lot of Performance Auto Group stuff, which I love. So today we have Colin Brand with us. So thank you for coming down, Colin.
Thank you.
So Colin is the general manager of our Performance Collision St. Catharines, which is one of 5 body shops in the group. And I'm pretty excited about this because it was actually a comment in our last podcast video that said we should have Colin on the podcast. And at first I was like, 1, would he agree to that? And then 2, I was like, once he did agree, I was like, that could be pretty cool for a few reasons. One is, collision and paint and, the body of cars, I think is such, there's so many arguments on the internet about like how to do that properly.
Yep.
So to have some, advice from someone who's deep into the industry. And then the other part is like the auto body and collision part of the automotive industry is just such a beast, it seems. And again, with a lot of myths and misconceptions. So hopefully we can dig into a little bit of that today.
Yes. The auto body industry has completely changed in the last 15 years. I was very fortunate to come in right as the tide was shifting.
Okay.
The old school way has gone.
Mm.
The new school way is basically like service.
Okay.
It's all about certifications. It's all about proper repair. It's all about repair procedures.
Mm.
The amount of technology that is being used in today's cars, for driving and advanced driver's assistance systems, and for fixing the car, has come a long way.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm excited to get into that.
Me too.
But to throw your curveball right off the hop, so being with Performance Auto Group for how many years now?
This will be my 14th year.
14 years?
Yeah.
I always throw our guests under the bus like early on in the podcast and just say, what's your favorite car brand?
Well, favorite car brand, I would have to say, are we talking like what would be my dream car or car to fix? Because I always need 2.
Let's do both. Let's do a dream car.
Okay. So dream brand, very similar to you, probably be a Porsche.
Nice. Okay.
My favorite vehicle to fix, and I don't think anything even compares, would be BMW.
Really?
Yeah.
So why is that your favorite to fix?
BMW takes a lot of pride in developing repair procedures, developing a collision network of dealers and shops, and we're held to really, really high standards.
Really?
And they tend to simplify some things that we do that other manufacturers haven't really caught on to yet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you're talking about BMW, and I'm just going to compare it to Lexus, this is a myth on the internet, and I think it's true, but is the paint harder? Like, I mean like hardness scale versus like a Lexus.
I think it is, and you would really probably only notice that once you get to polishing some stuff.
Yeah.
I think all brands nowadays have great paint. We've come a really long way at developing good products. When it comes to the aftermarket side, we're all using aftermarket products to develop our finishes. So that's where my experience is going to come from. We don't buy BMW paint to go on a BMW car, which is a big misconception nowadays, is that you would just order, black from Lexus to paint a black car.
Yeah.
But these manufacturers are purchasing paint from a variety of vendors at the factory, and we're seeing very large discrepancies between colors that could be the same.
Yeah.
If I took 2 Toyotas the same color and swapped the doors, you would sit there and be able to see it.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason a lot of high-end manufacturers, like I'll use Lamborghini for example, they would typically, even if it's still hand-painted, they would typically not have 2 painters do it, because you would see a discrepancy where the 2 crossed paths. So everything from the way your arm moves while you do it, to the product you're using, to the pressure you're using, to the distance from the car, to the temperature, they could really they could really change the way metallics tend to sit on some panels, and change the overall look of a car.
You're breaking my brain right now because that makes the industry that you're in so complicated. Like, I'm thinking of like, oh, it's, one of our paint colors is like 1J7. It's like a atomic silver. It's like, oh, 1J7 is 1J7. Doesn't matter. But no, you're right.
I probably have 15 1J7s in my shop, like different variety of 1J7. You could go from a redder color to a greener color to a lighter color to a darker color to a coarser metallic to a finer metallic.
Wow.
And I'll be honest with you, the painter's job has become really difficult, and I don't know how they do it.
Really?
Like it is a skill upon its own.
I have heard that, like, to get a good painter means a world of difference. And I know right now we have a really good painter in that job, and I'm grateful. I know him personally. Andrew, I think, is it was someone with talent when it comes to that, and you can see it in his work. But back to the supplier of paint thing. So, like, luxury brands as a whole, like, do these luxury brands like Lexus, BMW, like, do they, Mercedes, Audi, are they using the same paint supplier, do you think, or all different?
I think they'd all be different. I think some German makes might use more of one product or a series of products, and you'll step back and look at these corporations are close to each other in on the map. Like their dots on the map are very close to each other, so they get to build relationships with certain companies. You won't find a BMW made with much American built toners and stuff typically used with a German product. But I don't even think one manufacturer is going to stay the same, and I don't think they put all their eggs in one basket. They may have their e-coat with one supplier. They may have their base coats with another. Which can present some issues. Right. You have to make sure that the products you're using go well with each other, and that they're not contaminating each other and causing failures down the road.
And I'm glad you brought up failures, because that was a big question that I wanted to ask today, because, we were talking about it earlier today, like, in the used car world, it seems like there really is two types of repairs. There's the quick fix, and we see those shops all over the place where, like, it's some guy in a pickup truck that literally will come and spray a car, but do like a blend on it, and it's, a couple $100, and it looks good for that moment, but 3 years down the road it fails. And to the viewers, like, what I mean by fail is, like, you literally see the paint not, looking the way it should, like not sticking, or it's flaking off the clear coats, or even the metal underneath, having issues.
It's flaking off in large chunks.
Right. Or fading even. So, like, if someone's looking for a used car, do you have any advice, like, to try to identify those, or is it, like, pretty much impossible to tell at the moment?
To the untrained eye, it can be a little difficult. The things to look for are not necessarily to look at the color. Us as humans tend to kind of sit back and just look at the depth of some color, and we don't tend to kind of look at reflections off of cars. That's probably the best trick I could give, is kind of not look at something face on. Sometimes look at the side, and try and find the reflection of something. So if you have a coworker standing there, look at his clothing, right, and see if it wants to kind of take a big jump out to the side. There's a parking lot line. If it's straight, you've got a nice clean finish. But when you look at that panel from the front, you might say, "Oh, this is fantastic." You look at it from the side, and a straight parking lot line might take a giant curve, or could kind of just look very blurry. Right, and that would show some cloudiness and some clears and stuff like that.
I literally appraise cars as part of my job for a living, and I didn't know that trick.
I always say that. Don't try and find the defect. Look at something off, like use it like a mirror.
Use it like a mirror.
And the defects will tend to jump out. And the last real obvious thing is debris. I mean, especially small repair. We're doing things in not the most cleanly environment. Body shop's different. Paint booths are extremely clean. They're extremely high tech, and they do a very good job at filtering out debris into filters and keeping it there. But some of these small repair and some body shops just don't have that kind of setup too. So look for debris. And you're clear. That's another big sign of something being done.
What about the paint gauge thing? Because I remember when I took on the sales management role, in the desk there was like a paint gauge laser. And
Yep.
like one of the salespeople were like, "Oh, make sure you use that when you appraise cars." But then when I used it, like even on a new car, it was inconsistent, like all over the car. It seems sometimes.
Yeah,
Like,
you'll
well,
see a lot of it, especially from a flat area to a side.
okay,
And manufacturers are getting much better at reducing the amount of product going on cars. And
okay,
and I know everybody's first thought is, oh, they're saving money, but
mm,
paint is not a very environmentally friendly product. So for manufacturers trying to go net zero and trying to reduce their globe or their footprint, um, they're using less paint for that reason too.
yeah,
Okay. So yes, flat areas will tend to sit heavier, especially if they're painted flat.
mhm,
It won't want to dissipate down the panel as much. Something more vertical can be a little thinner at times.
mm. I don't know if you've heard this theory, and I think it's the truth because Lexus Canada told me it. But so I came from a BMW, a black BMW to a black Lexus. That was my transition like 10 years ago, whatever it was. And black cars are hard to keep looking good.
Most difficult.
But for whatever the reason, the black Lexus, like, was even harder. Like, I would remember, like, I could hand wash or use a touch wash, like, the one we have here on the BMW, and it wouldn't really leave as many swirls. And on, like, the Lexus, it was like, as soon as I, like, touched it with my finger, it would leave, like it would seem so soft.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Lexus about it and be like, "Yo, what is with this? Like, on." And they were like, "Well, no, like, the reason we use a softer, clear maybe second layer of clear coat or whatever they use was to have, like, some self-healing properties." I don't know if
Yep.
you've heard that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's big. It's that, and self healing is big in paint protection films as well, right? So softness can be a good thing, and it also allows us to work that clear coat to reduce swirls
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So they may be easier to create, but they're also easier to get rid of.
Yeah.
To do it on something with a real hard finish, I mean, it's kind of like concrete. So to try and shine it up sometimes can be a little tricky, a little difficult.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's a good point for us to talk about your career trajectory because as you were mentioning earlier, so you started with our group, 14 years ago?
14 years ago,
14 years ago as a detailer,
correct.
and then now you're the general manager of, the collision center. So what was that like? Like, what was that trajectory like for you?
So, early in my career, I was very fortunate that my previous general manager saw something in me.
Mm,
And I say that to any new young individual coming into my store is talent will be recognized and hard work will be recognized. And there's no blueprint to the proper career path in this industry.
mm,
Everyone can come from a different area and everybody can make something of themselves. So the path, how it happened. So I started in cleanup. My brother-in-law worked as a body technician um, at our like our old body shop,
okay.
which was now been swallowed up by Mercedes. It's the new van shop and stuff
Oh,
like
okay.
that. So it used to be two separate buildings. It was Chrysler, the old Checkpoint Chrysler body shop,
Yeah.
and then Performance Cars, which was the Mercedes dealer.
Mm,
Mercedes expanded. They needed to. They were in very small space. We needed a much bigger shop as well, and we needed to come into the modern era. Our old shop was pretty outdated. So I was in cleanup about 4 months,
mhm.
and my predecessor gave me the opportunity. He asked me. He recognized something in me, and
Mm,
he gave me two options. Okay, so we could either go down the path of being a technician, or down the path of being an office worker. My first initial thought was, let's be a technician.
yeah.
Um, but that can come with a lot of or a lengthy path to get
Mhm,
to where you're trying to get. There's a lot of schooling, there's a
mhm.
lot of training, there's a lot to learn, and cars change every day, so the learning never ends. Um, I was blessed with the opportunity, so I did a morning cleaning cars. I would go home, and back then we had to wear a shirt and tie. So I
Okay.
would switch into a shirt and tie at my lunch hour, then come back and I would estimate cars for an afternoon.
Okay.
I did that for about 6 months. So about a year into my career, I decided to become an estimator. And I did that for about 4 years, even into our move into our new facility. And then we created what's called like a blueprinting area of our collision center. So when we take in tow-ins or any car of that matter, we dismantle them to the point where the damage ends. And then we try and limit the amount of things that are discovered later on in repair.
Okay.
Like broken clip or whatever. We want to break everything that could break nice and early so everything
Mm,
can get ordered and things can be planned
I
accordingly
see.
through a facility. So I did that for uh, quite a long time. I'd say about 6 years. And our predecessor moved on to somewhere else, and I had the opportunity to become general manager, and I will be at my second year about 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when that all happened, because, like, me being in the role I'm in, I think I know everybody, like, especially the leaderships in the different dealerships and operations, and I remember, like, from some of the executives and other managers, like, you know, the way that they've looked at your career trajectory was, like, that value that Performance Auto Group really is proud of is the talent aspect, like the internal growth and stuff like that. Because yeah, you were right there. Like when that opportunity came up, they didn't have to go find someone outside of these walls. They had you right there. And the move for you and even just dealing with the shop and some of the changes you've brought, I think is noticeable enough that it's like, yeah, that's the best way to do it is have someone from within take on these bigger leadership roles, right?
And it seems to be a common theme throughout the whole group, right?
Definitely, yeah.
We tend to always have a replacement already there,
Mhm.
and it creates some stability for the team as well, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we changed managers 2 years ago, but the rest of the team was virtually the same,
Mhm.
and it creates a much better transition from one to the other
Yeah.
than a complete overhaul. And in
100%.
collision repair, technicians tend to follow. It's a big thing.
Oh, really?
So technicians want, they have some trust with someone, they have some trust with a particular manager, and they could tend to want to follow them. So that was a big fear for the group for sure.
Yeah.
Was keeping the group intact because we have a fantastic group of technicians.
Oh, for sure.
Fantastic. So yeah, we're only as good as they are.
It's funny, like, because as you know, one of my closest friends works in your body shop, and, like, I'm not at all good at, even maintaining my black car's paint, and it's so funny, like, he'll lecture it's kind of like a gift and a curse, because like, I always know I can just call him to fix whatever I mess up on the car, right? And he was lecturing me about my Supra, and he's like, "You touch it too much, like, you touch your paint so much, and that's why you have swirls, that's why you have this and that." Um, and and then, like, I try to make it better, like, I think I'm doing a good job because 'cause I'm, like, waxing it, but then I'm creating more swirls somehow, just
Touching it with more product.
with more
Yep.
product, like, I'm just the technique that I'm doing is whatever, and then with the same token, he taught me early on, like, I had this Lexus GS, and it was, like, my first big car purchase, and I loved it so much, and I remember one day I woke up, and a shingle hit the side of it, and it left this huge scrape down the side, and I was so stressed out, so I called him up. I woke him up, it was, like, a Sunday morning. He came over, and he was drinking his coffee, and he's like, "Is this really what you woke me up for?" And I was like, it taught me that, like, first of all, everything can be fixed.
Yep.
You just gotta know, how to do it or where to go. And then 2, it's, like, also the other side of it of, like, also, yeah, you can make it worse by by touching it and stuff like that. So what is, like, your golden rule of, like, advice for a lot of our viewers have these Lexuses, they love them, they, probably touch them as much as I do, which can make it worse. Like, what's your golden rule for, like, maintaining the paint?
I will repeat his advice.
Okay.
Is basically don't touch it. Is especially with the introduction of matte finishes. I mean,
Yeah, I've heard that is a
that's taken
scary
on another level. Matte finishes, there's also no correction that can be done to them, right? You can't polish a matte finish. What it is what it is. If you get debris in it while you're painting it, the only solution is to repaint it. There is no blending it. There is no polishing it. There is no waxing it. It can be a little difficult to maintain, but the big advice is don't touch it.
Okay.
Ultimately, so touch it with less. Leave
Okay.
it to the professionals. Just go to touchless areas.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
Use foam spray and then power wash off. A lot of wash mitts is not a very good thing sometimes either.
Okay.
Especially black. I
Yeah.
mean, black is its own animal. It's its own beast. Other colors are a little easier to maintain, and you want to hand wash a car, buy a white car.
What's the, what about drying it?
Drying I think everybody might approach this quite differently.
Okay.
Most importantly, very, very clean cloths. If it's your own car and you want to touch it, I would say buy yourself a brand new pack of microfibers and always use something new. Okay, so that's the big one. In a commercial setting or in a service setting or whatever, when you that's not feasible. It's very important to maintain your stuff. So a clean cloth. You wouldn't. I used to clean cars myself. I used to like to wash my chamois between every car.
Okay.
I would wash my hand washer or my soaper quite often. But the big thing is to just keep your stuff clean and don't touch it unless you have to.
All right, well, this is already making so much sense because the chamois that I've been using on my cars, I've never washed,
Yeah.
like, in 3 years.
Yeah.
So
Hang it up, power wash it.
okay, so
Yeah.
power wash it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Flip it around, do both sides. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that'll make sense. I got to do better on
Yeah.
my end. Yeah.
I think on a lot of them you could wash in the washing machine too, right? So we do that a lot with our microfibers. We try and extend the life.
Yeah.
So we have an area where we collect our old microfibers, and we try and reuse them several times.
Got it.
But the moment that there is any kind of hard edge, it has to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so let's talk about the industry a little bit. So we were mentioning like the car industry as a whole has changed so much over the last couple years. Like especially with COVID, I think, and it made us like level up a little bit. And I think you were kind of mentioning that like on your end, like even with the cars themselves, have gotten so much more complicated. Like I don't know, what is your biggest, hill these days? Is it EVs? Is it hybrids? Because I'm sure you got to tackle those cars a little differently.
Yep.
What is it like? What's the biggest thing?
So EVs and hybrids will be one challenge for sure, and that's worker safety. So these electronic vehicles have so much voltage running through them that it's a major concern to anybody working on them. So from a service technician to a body shop to even firefighters, it's been a whole transition for all of us.
Wow.
To learn the proper way of shutting them down. They do a great job, especially for first responders, to put an area where you can sever the connection and disable the car pretty quickly.
Okay.
Because it's basically like a power line. It's like having a power line. It's open.
I didn't think
and,
that. Yeah.
and it's very dangerous. So that would be one, but I don't think that's my biggest concern because they do a great job at developing ways to discharge them
Mhm.
and to make them safe to work on. The real challenge moving forward is going to be advanced driver's assistance system.
Got it.
Especially as we merge towards autonomous driving. So
Mhm.
right now we have the luxury of having human backup,
Yeah.
right? That won't always be the case. So I read this one time very recently, and the quote has stuck with me. So we'll use one of the cruise control radars as an example, and if that is off 1 millimeter and you extend that out 100 meters, you're now off a meter.
Hmm.
Right? So you could be seeing someone or something, or it could be recognizing something and making a decision off bad data.
Damn.
So the big thing moving forward is ensuring that advanced systems are calibrated and installed properly.
Wow. Yeah, that really puts it in perspective. Especially because like a lot of those systems are supposed to like the actual pre-collision system in our cars, it's supposed to kick on at the last second.
Yep.
Like
It
and
gives you every chance to stop.
yeah, it is like a millimeter. And you're saying it could be off, even a whole meter after you multiply that. And it made me even remember like a new trend in the auto industry right now is steer by wire, right? So Tesla had that. That's how they got the yoke at first. Lexus has now come up with a model, the RZ, that has steer by wire. And now Mercedes is doing it too, I heard. So like even that's a new challenge of like, okay, putting that system back together. It's not like, as simple as just making sure the wheels are straight when the steering wheel is straight, but all the gadgetry and calibration in between that, right?
And these systems themselves tend to be very enclosed. So even the step before this was an electronic steering gear. And a lot of manufacturers made statements that if suspension was damaged to the point of being deformed, having to be replaced, not just worn out, but something that's damaged or deformed had to be replaced, that you had to replace an electronic steering gear. And it's because you can't overhaul these things in an aftermarket setting to discover damage.
Yeah.
You can't discover a collapsed column without, removing it entirely from a car. And these are not easy tasks to do, and they're not inexpensive to do. So that was step one into this whole thing. Calibration would be extremely important, and I wouldn't be surprised if these statements kind of get taken further in protection of the manufacturer, especially again as we move towards autonomous driving. The liability is shifting from vehicle owners to manufacturers. So manufacturers are going to do everything they can to make sure that the vehicle that they're standing behind is getting fixed at a dealership, is getting serviced at a dealership, because too many hands could affect their liability.
100%. It's so much more complicated now.
Yeah.
And that brings you to a really good point. So the body shop that you're running is certified by a number of different brands.
Yes. I think we have about 12.
Okay.
Maybe 15.
But there's so many shops out there that aren't.
Nope.
Oh, like you're the closest to the manufacturer at this point.
Yep.
So how, like, what is that process like? Is it, especially to have 12, like, because like you said, like BMW is different than Lexus and Mercedes is different and all that stuff.
Every manufacturer is different. Some are easier than others. Some are more difficult than others. I'll lead back to BMW. BMW, and I'll, you know what? I'll include all the Germans. They tend to hold you to a very high standard. Toyota Lexus has done a lot of work developing collision repair networks, collision repair procedures. They've worked with estimating systems, developed one-time use or to list one-time use parts. There's a lot of work that has gone in behind the scenes to develop the program, but then they also audit your facility for cleanliness. They don't want their brand associated with the wrong place. For training, all of our technicians need to go through manufacturer training, just like a service technician would. Our estimators do. Even myself, as a manager, has entire curriculums based just upon being a manager of a collision center.
12 brands.
And then times 12. Others can be a little more simplistic. Others are like, okay, you need these 15 pieces of equipment, and you need to show that you have some sort of training in welding high strength steel or what it may be, or aluminum. And others could be quite intense. So Mercedes, we're trying to get a Mercedes Elite certification, which will give you an aluminum certification to work on like the SLS, the GT, and a couple components of the S class. But that involves one of my technicians going to, it used to be Germany. Now they have a facility in Texas. So they go and they spend 10 days basically going through a welding course in Texas that is developed for welders, not for car technicians. They have to weld upside down. They have to weld from down up. They have to weld flat on every angle possible, in every nook and cranny possible, because cars are tight spaces. And then recertification, I think, is every 6 months.
Wow.
Right? So that's a big undertaking.
That makes me so happy because most, like in the world that you're in, most of that repair is actually hidden, right? Like I just pictured someone welding underneath, a GX or a G-Wagon or something like that. And it's like, I can't tell from the street if that was a good repair or not.
Of course.
It's hidden until it goes wrong.
And some you may need a glue backing in there. Some you may not. Some don't want a contamination on your weld by using a glue with a hardener.
Okay.
When cars are built, they're built in a different environment without interiors, so they can bake things to temperatures that aftermarket people can't.
Yeah.
So they'll use a lot of products that are called 1K, so it just has no hardener in it. Okay. And then the product gets cured going through the oven. So they can weld through glue that we can't. And in an aftermarket environment, because we have hardeners in our product. So some manufacturers don't allow glue in behind a weld. Some do. Some want glue and riveting, and they're just eliminating welding entirely. Welding's a very unique skill, and it's a very tough skill to uniformly kind of enforce across the entire world, yet alone just an entire country, right? So some manufacturers develop product or techniques that will work in South Africa as well as North America and Asia. They try and not have 18 different ways to fix a car. So that's a big thing kind of going is the elimination of welding in some cases. And then the products going in and nugget size. So even what I mean by nugget is when you're welding when you're welding a hole by using a hand welder or a MIG welder, depending on the amount of panels that are there, you may have to have a 6 millimeter weld versus a 4 millimeter weld when there's only 2 panels. Some may want MIG welding, some may want a spot weld. So repair procedures are extremely important. And they change every day. So even if you've done, 20 Toyota Corollas, it's still very important to constantly look at repair procedures because something could instantly change from one day to the next. And what used to be a spot weld may now no longer be.
Wow. No wonder when I see those collision repair bills on bigger jobs, like it adds up quick.
When
you look at it from that level.
Yep.
Okay, so Colin just showed me this car, and for our viewers at home, you should Google it, called the BMW, I'm going to butcher it, New Class.
I think it's Neue Class.
Neue Class.
Yes.
And what he was saying was, if you look this up, the headlights and the design of the car, it looks like a lot of the sensors and autonomous, gadgetry is getting moved into the headlights, which actually will be an easier repair for a body shop, but perhaps a more expensive one if those headlights happen to get hit.
Yes, and I've heard you say this on one of your previous shows. Headlights are the big ticket.
Yeah.
And most people don't understand how intricate a headlight is in today's cars. The amount of things that go into them and the amount of technology into them is quite fascinating. But we're just breaking the ice, I think, on it. I think we're going to accelerate at a very high pace, and that these kind of things are going to flow throughout the entire industry. And let's face it, BMW likes to do some new things. They like to be on the edge, right? Wouldn't be surprised. Audi's another big one. Audi loves their lighting systems, I feel like, right? So they're pretty quick at, I believe they might have been the ones who developed laser.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
What's been the hardest car you've had to tackle in your shop? Is it like just the matte paint? No, I'm not.
Yeah, I know. Let's go that way.
Yeah. I know Jay was telling me like it, even from the factory, sometimes those can just be such a pain.
Yep.
Or stressful, like high stress.
Yeah. So I looked at one yesterday where I had to do some sort of small cleanup of a panel. Didn't need paint, but you look at the overall finish of the car, and even in the most clean environment of the factory, these things have some minor dust defects right away from the factory. And let's face it, I think a lot of people buying a car nowadays don't tend to look at it under the same microscope as they do when they're picking up from a body shop. So these defects, we'll call them, are magnified, right, in the aftermarket world. And I would have to agree. It's going to be matte. Matte is going to be the worst thing that you could ever really. But I love them. Like, I love them. Right.
Look,
Yeah.
I love the way they look. But yeah, you just said something that reminded me, like, on the sales side, we're always dealing with the guests on like the happiest day.
Yep.
Right? On the collision side, you're dealing with them on not their favorite day.
I always say this. So I mean, in sales, like you said, someone's coming in at 10 of 10, they're excited, and they're both unique avenues, because sales, I feel like all you could really do is maybe lower the standard. You could just drop the ball on them, right? In collision, we have a unique aspect where we get to bring people up out of the worst time, right? So it's a little easier sometimes if you look at it from a different lens.
Yes.
It's a little easier to make their day a little better, because they're already down at the bottom. So all you can do is pick them up at this point.
Yeah, so hit the car.
Exactly.
After the
Yeah.
That's so good.
So it brings a unique aspect to collision repairs. You get to help people out of some of the worst moments of their life, right?
So what's your craziest story?
Craziest story. I mean, I'm in a body shop, so we have many.
The whole industry has many stories.
The one that I like to come back to, and it's a little crazy, but I think it was just the fear in me more than anything. And it's fairly recent. It's about a year and a half ago. My phone was ironically charging downstairs in my two-story home, and my wife woke me up saying, "I think your phone is ringing," right? And so I went downstairs, and I had about 14 missed calls, all unknown numbers.
Mhm.
And I saw, we have a security company that take care of our property. I saw one on there from them, and it was a text, and it had said, "Okay, there's firefighters at your building. There's an emergency."
Yeah.
Right. So again, 2:30 in the morning, you just woke up, and someone's telling you that your facility is on fire, essentially, right? So I rushed. Luckily, I live about 4 minutes from work. I rushed to work. There's about 3 fire trucks there. The building looked fine. So the first impression, good, right? So I go around the back, and the firefighters open the door. My entire shop is filled with smoke.
Whoa.
All right. So again, anxiety, fear, everything that's going through your mind. I mean, there's millions and millions of dollars equipment in there, the building itself, and yet alone the people's keys, some cars. Luckily, everything was kind of light that day, but we had a compressor fire. So
No way.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. We had a compressor that kind of had a short inside its system in the middle of the night. Luckily, it's like an enclosed unit, so the unit lit on fire, and it put itself out when there was nothing left to go inside the building, right? But it filled my entire shop with white smoke. It took about 3 hours with firefighter fans to kind of clear out before I was even allowed in there.
That's amazing. Like, you must have some flammable products in there. Like, it could.
There is. I mean, we have you're not wrong. We have a lot of flammable products. Paint is an extremely dangerous product. like you're not even allowed to have electronics in a paint booth because all it takes is static, right?
Yeah.
So yes, definitely a very scary moment. But luckily, it was nothing more than a compressor that needed to be replaced.
Yeah.
But it was a ride of emotions for sure. Yeah,
I bet. That's part of management, I guess.
it is. Yeah.
It's like being a parent, but to desperation.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a few more things. We did cover a lot. Like I love learning about, the strict brand requirements. We talked a little bit on like the certification stuff. Um, we talked about some myths, or like not myths, but advice to people who have like a black car, I think. We talked about the industry changing and what's that about. What about like some advice? Because that's one of the things I realized with these types of videos is like even my newest hire really looked to, when he was researching getting into the industry, look to these types of videos to see like, advice and like what it's like. So you know, let's talk about like maybe some advice you'd give to someone getting into the industry, but also maybe even before that, like what are some reasons that come to mind that are like perks to get into the industry or like that, someone would benefit from?
Um, Perks. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a bit of it. So my technicians have not necessarily the luxury of working on their cars nonstop because we are a business, but every single one of them has developed a skill that has translated to some of their own toys, and they can help their friends like you have,
Oh,
like
I'm
yourself,
I'm
right?
so glad he got into that industry because yeah, it's
He's a savior. He's a magic man. If I need some help and I need something really fixed, that's who I'm going to as well. So, I mean, for myself, I know there's not one thing that he can't take care of
oh
for me. Um, but the big advice I would say to people is to think about collision repair. So most guidance counselors and most school programs, and I've faced it with myself, tend to steer you to being a mechanic. They go, okay, you like to work on cars, you want to work on cars for a living, let's make you a mechanic, right? And yes, we have a mechanic shortage, we have an entire labor shortage, but we are extremely desperate for collision repair technicians. It is really difficult to find someone new. I had one retire last year, and I think it took me almost 6 or 7 months to find his replacement.
wow,
And the only reason I found him is I hired a painter that happened to be his best friend. So,
wow,
like, it's very difficult. There's a lot of poaching happening, and it's a very aging industry. So the average age of someone in the industry has got to be in its 50s at this point. I have a very young team myself, very experienced young team, but I would say it's just coming into it, being open to it, thinking about it. And there's many different avenues you can take in the automotive industry. You don't necessarily need to twist wrenches anymore.
yeah.
Um, everything is computer based. There's a lot of engineering involved. And it's a really cool, fast paced industry to be involved in.
And like, yeah, we know there's money to be made there. Of course, the people that are good. But I remember Jamie telling me like the satisfaction, even buffing a car, like not even just the painting aspect, but when he can take a car and give it that mirror finish.
Yeah.
Like that is such a cool, rare accomplishment of like being able to like watch that transformation. And I think for those that get really good at painting, it's probably the same thing. Like putting that final touch on the car with their own, brushstroke, I think is really cool.
It's really fun to watch. It's kind of mesmerizing, to be
Yeah.
honest, to kind of sit there. And I find myself sometimes just doing it. I'm fascinated by watching what these people can do with
Yeah.
their polisher in their hand or a paint gun. It is really cool to watch.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm pretty sure you covered all the questions I wanted to tackle. Is there anything else, our audience should know about or any advice or, things that you wanted to get out there?
Advice, you know what? Always, especially new cars, always trust the dealer. Always certified collision repair is a thing that is not going away, and that is the future. Conventional body shops are a thing of the past at this point, and I think we need to realize what's happening in today's cars and how important a proper repair is. And my last note would be, young people, don't be scared to come into the industry. It's a great career path. And we are all desperate to have young talent.
Yeah. And that's, man, like to get into an industry that is looking for talent like that is a peace of mind, I think, because like then it's like a little bit of job security for the future. Like cars are just going to keep getting more and more complicated to fix, and they are always going to need fixing when it comes to collisions and stuff. So talk about a sure bet. I think it's a smart move. And it is shocking that, yeah, that there is a shortage because Yeah, if I was good at it, I would be all over that. I think it'd be so cool to do that. That'd be nice. Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, good places are always there to teach you. So like we just want hardworking people that are passionate with what they do, and the rest can be taught. Truly can be taught.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Colin, for coming on
Thank you.
today's video. Please let me know in the comments below what you guys thought. If you had any questions for Colin, I would happily pass those on. Especially, I know he's really easy to reach on my end, so we could throw that. And if you have any other ideas of who you'd like to see on this type of video. I'm Dustin Mason for Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.